Welcome back, everyone, to the Hobo Thinga podcast. My name is Crystal Stadino, and I'm the Training and Development Manager for the Native Learning Center. Thrilled that all of you could be listening into today's podcast topic, which is going to be about financial literacy and the #1 economic crisis in the world. And we have a wonderful subject matter expert with us today, Shantae Moore, who's a certified financial educator. Go ahead and say hi.
Hi, good. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be on this new podcast format with Crystal and Corliss and everyone joining in.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this with us, for us, and all that good stuff. So we definitely appreciate you. And before we continue, let me go ahead and introduce this other individual who's sitting in the room. We have Cora Anthony. Go ahead and say hi, Cora, and introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Cora Anthony. I'm the Training and Development Specialist at the Native Learning Center.
And she's my trusty, handy dandy sidekick. So we work pretty well together, I'd say so. So we're all here to see what Shantae has to say about this topic today. So we're excited. Why don't you go ahead and kick it off, Shantae?
Yeah, thank you again. I think this topic is so important to talk about when we look at why is financial literacy so important and why is it the #1 economic crisis in the world. It's not even just in America, it's the entire world. And in my role, I'm the director of Native American Financial Literacy Services, and I teach tons of financial literacy webinars and workshops. Obviously, I do a lot with you all. And I find over and over that a lot of folks are just very uneducated on a lot of topics. And it's not to judge at all. It's just that many folks, they don't know what they don't know. And I'm pleased that my workshops actually educate them, but it's I found it more and more important that we need to become financially literate, and a lot of folks don't even know what that means. It's like, what does that mean? When you think of like literacy, it basically means you know how to read, right? That's what being literate means. So when you are illiterate, it means you cannot read. So when we add the word financial literate, it means that you know how money works. And then when you are financially illiterate, you don't know how money works. But it's still a vague topic of, well, Shantae, I know how money works. What are you going to teach me that I don't know? And I think that's where my work comes in to really help people, hit the mark so that they can actually become more educated. And like I said, they don't know what they don't know. A lot of folks think they know how money works, but they really don't.
I couldn't agree more. I know a few years ago, it's funny. I think we met because of a financial literacy class that we took together, I believe, for building Native communities.
Yes. Yep.
Financial skills for families through
Hmm.
OESTA. I believe you attended that and
Yep.
you got certified through them, which is great as well. I don't think
Yes.
I really understood how, and I still don't fully. I think, there's always room to grow, but
Yes.
I definitely think that that was my starting point for starting that understanding of how, money works, how it flows, how you should possibly be making your spending plan or budget and whatnot. So that's at least where my journey started.
Yeah.
So I completely agree.
Yeah, I would say we start this journey early because when we deal with money and currency, that's the one economic tool that we have to use for the rest of our lives. But nobody teaches us how to use money, how to leverage banks, how to build good relationships with financial institutions. It's not often until folks become, older adults that they finally learn from mistakes. They've actually learned through trial and error. And unfortunately, a lot of, uneducated decisions, misinformed choices have put people back. Now they're trying to catch up later in life because they're thinking, I can't tell you how many folks I've worked with, they said, oh, I wish I knew this when I was 20. I wish I knew this before I bought a house. I wish I knew this before, getting into this credit card debt. We learn after making those mistakes and making that trial and error. And that's why I encourage folks um, to be literate, to learn how money works, because that's the main definition of being financially literate is you know how to make good financial decisions. You know the exact outcomes of those decisions. And for me, you're actually confident in those decisions. You know, how many times do we just like cross our fingers and we're like, okay, I hope this is working out for me, whether it's an investment or a major purchase. And so that's why, again, it's so important for us to learn how money works and to teach our youth about these topics as well.
Well, if I can add, right? It also gives you the confidence to make better decisions for yourself and for your family when you know exactly where your money's at, where your money's going, how you're spending it, and how well off you are. It gives you a sense of self-worth and confidence as well. So I know when I started my money journey, I was the same way. I was like, I would cross my fingers and be like, let's hope this check clears.
Yeah.
And now I can confidently go into the stores and say, I can get what I need to get because I have it in there. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's right. I think in general, most folks want to do right by their money. I rare, we have those people who are overspenders and they just don't care. I have people in my family, as soon as they get a paycheck, it's literally gone the next day. Or, in our neighbor communities, we're going to the casinos all the time, or whatever it might be. And again, I'm not saying those are bad things. I'm not here to judge at all. Because trust me, I've worked with all type of families from both ends of the spectrum. But the whole point is that we it's important to learn these things. I'll be talking in our series about the whys behind it. What things do we not know? And then at the end, what 7 steps you can take to make good decisions with your money. In general, most folks want to do good with their money. I always get asked, Shantae, I'm making a good income now. I want to do things for my children, for the elders in my family. I just don't know what to do. And those are the folks that I appreciate who come to me for that guidance, and that I can give them step by step. Okay, every single dollar should have a job. Every single dollar. We don't, whether even if that job is to have fun somewhere or to get your nails done, it has a job. But we need to identify, what do we need to do? What do we have left over? And I know, Crystal, you guys have done amazing podcasts in the past about budgeting and spending and things of that nature. But it is so important. And I know another thing is, and especially in our tribal communities, it's very taboo to talk about money. It's like, hold on, you don't need to know about my situation. You don't need, adults tell their children, oh, mind your business, you don't need to ask about these things. And I believe it's the exact opposite. We need to be open and have these open conversations with anybody, our partners that we live in the household with. We know that, financial issues is the #1 cause for divorce. I talk to my children all the time about money because I want them to have a good relationship with it. Sometimes it can be perceived as, oh, if we're talking about money, then you have like an evil or negative perspective with it, or people with money are they're bad people, and that's so not the case. You want to have, again, positive relationships when it comes to how you think about money and how you work with money as well.
Absolutely. It's just so I've said this plenty of times in the classes that we've taught and whatnot. Like, I grew up pretty poor, and I grew up having a horrible relationship with money. And I just remember like growing up, and my mom was always like, literally living paycheck to paycheck, not knowing if a check was going to clear, not knowing if she's going to be able to pay for the groceries, not knowing, any of that. And Cora was mentioning like going to the store and knowing that you can pay for, those things. I think I suffer from a little bit of like PTSD from that because, I'm like, wait, can I? And it's like, yes, you can. Stop it. Like, you know what our situation is today. So yeah, absolutely. But with that, let's talk about, being financially literate. So what does it actually mean to be financially literate?
Yeah, so in the book, I talk about a lot of these things I'm talking about are from our book that I work with. A company that I use is called How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker. And for those who are interested in getting a copy, I'm sure we'll be able to post a link to how folks can get a copy of this book. For me, this is the easiest book on personal finances that I've ever had. In my 15 years of working with individuals. But from the books, I did want to read like their definition of it because I think it's so important, that we do understand what financial literacy means. And according to the book, it says having financial literacy adds to the values, skills, and self confidence necessary to make insightful and strategic money decisions, ultimately, because they will improve your quality of life. And I talk about, when I read quotes, I always tell folks the key word for me in that is strategic. We're not just spending money willy nilly. We're not just buying things and hope, again, like I said, crossing our fingers and hoping things work out. When you know how money works, every choice you make with your dollar is very strategic. And then I like to come in and teach you how to make sure it's a wise decision. And again, something that you're confident in. Strategic decisions when it comes to, okay, I mean, it could be something as simple as, what financial institution will I open a checking account with or a savings account? How will I leverage those accounts? What interest rates do they earn? What is the purpose of these accounts? What goals will I accomplish by having these accounts? Like, it's not just oh, this is an account I have and I do whatever I want to do with it. No, every decision is strategic. We talked about budgeting and making sure we have spending goals. Those very strategic decisions where you know exactly how much you can spend on groceries, exactly how much you can have for fun. Strategic decisions, especially when it comes to longer term goals, which I help a lot of my clients with, saving money for college, saving money for retirement. These aren't pie in the sky goals. There are ways to make strategic decisions so that I know that if I want to have, $1 million in retirement, I know exactly how much money I need to save away, exactly what account to put it in, the exact interest rate that I need to earn, and how that financial product needs to work for me to reach that goal. That's what being financially literate means, making strategic financial decisions.
Very well put, and simply too. I think, we a lot of the time we're always wondering, well, how do I get from A to, B and whatnot? And I think understanding that, like you said, it's a strategic goal. Every
Hmm.
dollar has a place and it's gonna go somewhere and you know where it's going and whatnot. And I like how how you put that and how the book outlines that. So
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
so, I'm seeing something here on our notes about the sucker cycle.
Yes.
What is that about?
Well, it's a harsh term to use the word sucker. Again, it's on the book. It says how money works, stop being a sucker. And I like that the authors put it straightforward. It's meant to take us being, learning through trial and error and making fun of it, making light of it. We call it the sucker lifestyle, or the sucker cycle, rather. And it's basically where folks are just, they earn a paycheck, right? And I'm talking about most folks just working, they earn a paycheck and they really don't think a whole lot about their money. The sucker cycle is, okay, I've worked, now I pay my rent or mortgage, now I buy my food, now I can, do some fun things and watch Netflix and go to movies or buy alcohol, whatever it is. And it's this constant cycle of mindlessly, a keyword, mindlessly spending money and not thinking about, okay, what is every single dollar doing? Unfortunately, a lot of us get caught up in this sucker cycle of putting this money away. And again, just at the end of the month, we're like, what happened to it? Where is it all at? In some situations, folks just don't make enough income, and that's where we live paycheck to paycheck. But oftentimes, I find that when you really look at the sucker cycle and how people are spending their money on a regular, consistent basis, they're mindlessly spending money on things that they don't need at all. How many subscriptions, especially over the pandemic, like how many subscriptions have we signed up for This one subscription is $2.99. This one's $4.99. I have a new makeup subscription. I barely wear makeup, gym memberships. How many times do we have these things? We sign up for them. We often don't use them. And we think, oh, it's just $5.99. That's a little bit of money. That's $6 every month. If you put away that $6 a day, over a 10-year period, it could grow to almost over $100,000. That makes a big difference. So that's that sucker lifestyle. So in my classes, when I teach about that, I'm like, look, okay, let's just stop. Let's take a step back. Where is our money mindlessly going to things that we really just don't need? And people find hundreds of dollars extra that they didn't know that they had, to now we can actually take that extra money. We could pay down some debt. We could use it to start investing. We can use it to just give people that, that extra comfort. Because it's not a nice life. Like you mentioned, Chris. So I think all of us probably grew up poor. I didn't grow up with any type of money at all. But it's so stressful when we worry about money. It's so, so stressful. Actually, stress over money is the number one emotional concern that a lot of folks have. And it's because of stressing over money. Um, but when we find that extra money, they have a little comfort zone. They're like, oh, okay, it's not as bad as I thought it was. So the sucker life cycle it just really has to do with a lot of mindlessly putting our money to places that we don't need. It's so easy. The number one step I tell folks is like, if you don't have enough, if you think that you're living paycheck to paycheck, let's just look at where those things are going. Pull your bank statements. Let's stop using extra credit cards and let's just look. Let's just take a minute to see where is every single dollar going.
I will say this, I was a big sucker. And I used to stop at Starbucks every day before work. And I thought that that was giving me it was giving me a false sense of happiness and like, oh, and my coffee in the morning. And then the first time I sat down, I created my spending plan and I saw just how much money monthly I was giving to Starbucks. When I stopped going and I took that money and then invested it and then put some into savings, it actually gave me a better long-term sense of ease and satisfaction than the morning coffee, because then it's like, oh, I'm not as stressed out every month about my finances because I was, like you said, mindlessly going through the drive-through every morning at 7 a.m., getting my coffee and not thinking about what I could actually be using that money for. So you put
Mhm.
it awesomely.
Yeah, and I would say it's okay to have some Starbucks every now and then. But again, as long as you have the budget for it. I like to treat myself. I mean, I even still get this. My kids, every time we go to Target, I always spend like an extra $20 on them somehow that I didn't plan to. So, it's okay to have those extras, and I don't want people to think like, oh, I need to live this so uptight lifestyle and I can't enjoy myself. You can, but it's just knowing and not doing it just again, just off the whim and not having any, budgeted amount for that. Another part I want to mention about the circular lifestyle, you kind of mentioned it. You said, I'm giving my money to Starbucks. And honestly, wealthy people in financial institutions take advantage of folks because they're in that circular lifestyle. We're paying extra bank fees we shouldn't be paying. We're paying overdraft fees, late fees. That's where the credit card companies make their money, because it's like, oh, when you're not thinking about, okay, let me make sure I pay my debt on time, and you don't think about the ramifications, financial institutions know folks make those decisions and they make more money off the fees than the actual interest that they collect as well. And that's another example of living in that circular lifestyle. So yeah, I mean, we don't know it. And I tell folks, like, when you go to the bank and you're cashing your check, what do they have at the cashier's window? A little bowl of what? Those dum dum suckers, those
Candy,
candies.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like you can't make it up. It's like the banks are calling you suckers by offering you these dum dum suckers. They call them dum dums, and then they're suckers. So it's like you can't make it up. The banks know this stuff. They know this because they know how to take advantage of folks when it comes to those who are uneducated and who don't know better.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so true. I mean, all of it. Like, and I think the most important, well, one of the most important things to recognize is, like you said, that just because we're trying to lessen or create more cash flow within our lives doesn't mean you have to go completely without, because I think a lot of the time we associate like, oh, this means I can't do this anymore. I have to completely cut it out, and it's like, no, you don't gotta go cold turkey. We need to cut back a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh my gosh. I noticed that's I know, and for me at least, when I started my journey, I was like, oh man, that means I have to go completely without. And then taking that class that we took, I was like, oh no, I just have to budget it into, you know what I
Right.
mean, like, you know, where my money's going and whatnot. So that was, I think that's a relief. So I feel like once you get past that hurdle, you know, then you're a little bit maybe more open to
Yeah.
adjusting other things within your life. So
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
absolutely. So I want to ask you this. Why should someone work with a financial advisor? Like, what is the benefit of that?
Yeah.
Why, and all of that?
Yeah, it's so important because there's so many, so unfortunately, so many of us are being taken advantage of when it comes to our finances. I see it on social media all the time. We have those expert non-experts who have no education, no training, no background, and they're giving all this, quote unquote, financial advice. And I encourage folks like, look. Yes, I want you to become educated. I want you to get a copy of this book because if you read it, you'll learn about money more than 99% of the population. I'm telling you, you'll learn so much from that. However, I also believe it's important to take guided advice from an unbiased professional. So, three keywords: guided advice, unbiased, well, actually, four, and a professional. We don't have to do this alone. Yes, we can learn so much. And I think there's so many wonderful programs out there where you can learn a lot of the basics. You can learn about budgeting and your credit and, maybe a little bit about how to take care of workplace benefits, how to take advantage of workplace benefits. But to really hit those bigger goals, it's so important to work with a financial professional. And I'll just take a step back. Of course, I'm a licensed financial professional. I have clients all over the country. I've been doing this for 15 years and I love what I do. It's kind of the key thing to understand is that one, not every financial professional charges money because I think that's a lot of a reason why people say, well, don't they charge me a fee? Or maybe I don't have enough money to get that professional advice. And I'm like thinking 99.9% of the American population need help with their money and they have no one to go to, or they think they don't have anyone to go to, or they think, a financial advisor is only for the ultra wealthy or the rich. And that's so not the case. 99.9% of our population need the help. There are so many amazing resources out there where folks like myself will work with you for free and to help give you that advice. And not everybody works for free. I'll tell you that for sure. A lot of advisors do charge fees, but they actually have a different market and they don't talk to average folks. I'll tell you right now, that's why I used to, before I owned my own business, I used to work at a corporate financial planning company, great company, but their target market were people who had $250,000 or more in assets. And I'm like, that's not me. That's not my family. That's definitely not my community. And those advisors were not talking to regular folks like us. They talk to the higher, upper rich. They fight over those rich people's money. But there are so many financial institutions who have advisors who will work for free. So I just encourage you, I could be a resource to anyone listening in, but if you want somebody close to you or local, walk into a bank. I mean, is the bank the best place? Not really, but it's a start. You can start there, sit with the banker. That's their job to sit there and work with you. And there's tons of folks online. I know my company, all of our advisors, we can't charge a fee. Our company won't allow us to, which makes, I'm glad that I don't have to charge a fee because it allows me to work with who I want, which are my minority communities. I'm Navajo and African American, two of the, most tribal nations and African American population, two of the most marginalized communities. Definitely not a lot of folks in this arena. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. Like, don't think that an advisor is not for me. The second thing I want to talk about is important to have someone who can give you guided, unbiased advice. When I sit with families, I'm taking a step back. Number one, I'm not as emotional about your money as you are. So when we take that emotion off the table, you can make more clearer decisions. And so I can come and say, you know what, Crystal, I know that you had this lifetime of, having trouble as a youth, and it might still affect you now, but I can show you a way to where we can move past that. And so I can give you that unbiased, really objective advice, because a lot of folks, the reason why they don't do anything with their money is because they're very emotional about it. They're either scared, they're too attached to it, or there might be some trauma. That's where a lot of financial coaching comes in, and there's a lot of organizations that can help with the coaching part. I'm more the strategic part, like, okay, now you know how much money you can save, what do we do with it? um, but it's so important to have that objective, unbiased advice. And then most importantly, I think we should always just leave it up to the professionals. Yes, you can Google university everything, but there's a couple things a lot of folks don't know. When it comes to financial products and services, financial institutions only offer the best of the best through a financial advisor. Like, if you try to go to a large company website, you're like, oh, I want that investment account. Oftentimes, when you click on it, they'll say contact your financial advisor, and then you'll get access to it. So, a lot of the top tier financial products you can't even get on your own. You have to have a financial professional to get access to it. One, but also it's like a professional, somebody who has licenses, somebody who might have a couple degrees or certifications, somebody who does this on a regular basis, day in and day out. I know I've taught a lot of webinars. You all specialize in housing and, HUD activities. I'm like, that's a very specific, training and rules. And you guys do that day in and day out. Like, why would I go to somebody down the street who doesn't deal with those things? Same thing when it comes to your money. You want to work with somebody who's professional, who has licenses, who has experience, who has a wide array of services and products that they can offer you to get you to those next steps to help you reach your goals.
Had to unmute myself. Well said, though. Very, very well said. Yeah, I'm not going to go to Radio Shack and that's like way old. I'm dating myself. But yeah, I mean, very well said. Yeah, you're not going to go somewhere where that's not where they specialize in. So don't do that to yourself. Definitely
Yeah.
talk to them. That's interesting though that most of the things like investment things or whatnot, you actually need a financial advisor. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's incredibly interesting. So maybe another episode to discuss that.
Yeah. I tell folks you can definitely open a lot of accounts on your own for sure. You could open investment accounts, but the best products that offer the best rates with the lowest fees, you have to have an advisor. But yeah, a lot of folks don't know that. And again, it's fine to start with something on your own, but let somebody professionally take you to the next level. So, and the one thing that I didn't mention was that you want to have recourse if something goes wrong. Because we have heard in the past where people have gotten scammed out of their money, rich people even. We heard of Ponzi schemes. You want to have recourse if something happens to your money, or you're not satisfied with the way that somebody is handling it for you, because you have to put a lot of trust into folks, right? To take their advice, to allow them to invest their money for you. But what if something goes wrong? When you work with a professional, oftentimes, because I work in a very highly regulated industry, a lot of laws, there's a lot of requirements. There's so many things in place to protect consumers, to protect you and protect your money from people who may prey on you, and a lot of financial advisors who are predatory. Unfortunately, my industry has those folks in it. But when you work with a financial professional, I could lose my licenses. I can get taken to jail. I can get fined. I could be barred from the industry. And that keeps me as a professional in check to make sure that I do what I'm supposed to do it with high integrity, with high ethical standards, and to make sure that I'm making the best recommendations for my clients. But if you're taking advice from, the employee who sits in the cubicle next to you, or Joe Blow, your neighbor down the street, what recourse do you have if you followed their, quote unquote advice? You have none. So again, that's another important reason why you should work with a financial professional when you really get into seriously saving a lot of money.
Well said. No Bernie Madoffs over here.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want that. All right. Well, Shantae, Cora, was there anything else you guys wanted to mention before we wrap up for today's episode? No?
No, no, I'm excited to talk more in our other podcasts.
Yeah, so are we. So are we. It's always so nice having you on here. It feels, you know what it is? It feels secure having someone who really knows what they're talking about. So thank you
Yeah.
for this. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
I appreciate it. I tell folks like, look, I'm not claiming to be the expert of all experts, but I do a lot of this. I work with hundreds of families day in and day out. So I'm confident in the things that I do share because I have helped people retire. I have helped people, send their kids off to college and pay off their mortgages. And those are so many satisfying goals that I'm so blessed to have an opportunity to help folks with. And so I appreciate you all, allowing me to share this information and hopefully help others to think about, let's start working on our finances. Let's start taking our money to another level. So thank you all for having me today.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you. Oh, as always, on
Yes.
webinars, podcasts, all of it. So that's another thing I guess I should mention. We have webinars that we've done with Shantae. So if anyone's interested, we keep those up for about 18 months. So, feel free to peruse them through our Native Learning Center website where there's a section specifically for recorded webinars. And then don't forget to check out our upcoming events as well. So I know our next fiscal year, there's going to be quite a bit of things coming through the loop, even with Shantae. I just know it. I
Yes.
just know it. So please be on the lookout for that. And I suppose that's a wrap up. So just be sure to listen, uh, turn those notifications on for our podcast. Look out for the Hobo Thing podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and of course the site that we released it on, simplecast.com. And Shantae, do you want to do a plug for your information?
Yes, yeah, thank you for the opportunity. So, as I mentioned, I'm the director of a company called Native American Financial Literacy Services. My website is www.nafls.com. We offer financial literacy workshops and trainings to tribal communities, Native community centers, Indian centers, any tribal populations that serve tribal communities. We offer those through that company. And then also, again, for any of you who are interested in a free copy of this book, I'm so passionate about this information. I will send a copy of this book to anyone who requests it for free. You can go to my website, howmoneyworks.com/Shantae W. Moore /book. And again, we'll have a link for that to share. It'll have you send an email to me. Just put your address in there and I'll send a free copy out to you. But thank you all so much again for allowing me to join you today.
Absolutely. And if you love today's episode, make sure you give us a 5-star rating. We don't want anything less. No, I'm just kidding. Sort of, but not really. Be sure to rate us though on Apple, Spotify, all the platforms and whatnot, and be sure to check back for more content. Other than that, I hope everyone has a great, day, night, depending on when you're listening to this, because I'm not sure, but hope you enjoyed the episode. Bye.
Bye, guys.